2011 was when the New York Times erected its paywall. What happened then was when the woke revolution really took hold in digital media, which is to say that words like oppression, marginalization, people of color and marginalization in the same sentence, right? Creating that neural pathway, right? That kind of woke worldview where, white people have all the power and are uniquely evil, and people of color have no power, no agency, and need our help and, need us to take care of them. That worldview started to appear in the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, all of the liberal media outlets started to use these words with just exponential frequency. White supremacy, right, went from being mentioned, 75 times to being mentioned, 750 times in 1 year, right?
Hey guys, and welcome back to Make a Reaction Reviews, reacting to things on the internet. Same day, same shirt, different video. And today we're returning to Bill Maher once again, and we're going to be reacting to a video or a clip of this. I don't know exactly who she is. I'll put her name on the screen, or she'll be in a thumbnail. I don't know if she's a journalist or just a talking head or author or whatever, but her, Bill Maher, and some other dude is talking about basically the state of journalism today and how it is completely disconnected from the everyday person. So we're gonna get right into it, but before you do, if you like these type of videos, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell to get notifications when I do upload. All of that really does help with the algorithm, guys. And if you'd like to support this channel even further, you can donate. My PayPal link is in the description box below and also in the comment section. Of course, it helps, but you don't have to. You can just like, comment, subscribe. Another great way to support this channel is either join my brand new membership program, different levels, different tiers, different perks, or you can visit my brand new merch shop. Links down below, and the links to all the other alternative platforms I'm on, social medias, and ways to support me is always going to be in the links down below. And if you are an independent artist and you'd like me to react to your song or play it in my intro, contact me on my email and let's do business. Other than that, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. All right, here you go.
What made it woke?
The abandonment of the working class. Journalism used to be a working class trade. It was a very low status job. Journalists lived in working class neighborhoods. They lived next door to factory workers and linemen.
Jimmy Breslin.
Exactly. Maybe a little bit more money than them. They saw themselves as outside of power, demanding justice on behalf of the little guy. Throughout the course of the 20th century, there was a status revolution among journalists to where journalism became basically an elite caste. It is now the provenance of basically people who are very, very, very highly educated, who come from rich parents, who come from money. Journalists, I mean, of course there are exceptions, but by and large, the pathway to becoming a journalist now is through the elites, through elite universities. And that has, as journalists ascended to the ranks of the elites, they abandoned the working class that they used to belong to. And I argue that today they're using a moral panic about race to distract from the ways in which they have benefited from income inequality in America. So it's a distraction from the real divide, which is economic and about class rather than political even. So I would even say the tribalism, it's not about politics, that's a mirage. The divide in America is about class.
Stopping it there, I totally agree with her. It's very hard to be the voice for the people, fight for the people, the average day American, the working class, the lower class. If you are completely and utterly disconnected to it, if you have absolutely no experience in it, if you never lived in that reality or lived in that life, it is very difficult for someone who is basically lived in a gilded cage, come from money, echelons, the highest education degree, been around those circles for their entire life to understand what the average Joe wants in their life. That's why they would promote something like defund the police, because they don't actually realize that most people who live in those areas, that is the most crime written, do not want to defund the police. So how can you be for the voices of those people when you don't even understand that simple fact? I have more to say, but let's get into it.
When did this change take place?
Great. Slowly and then all at once. It started around the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. In the 60s, people got televisions, which meant that suddenly a profession where college was never a premium. The majority of journalists never had a college degree before that. After that, the newspapers wanted a more interpretive kind of journalism because you could get the immediate stuff directly from the TV.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing at all.
Right?
Well, I mean, I kind of think for a journalist, I think that it's had a very corrosive effect.
A
I'll get to
college
that.
degree?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in the undermining democracy bit. So the 70s, you had All the President's Men. This movie came out, right? And suddenly, like, a journalist could be this like sexy sex pod who brings down a president, you know?
Yes.
Suddenly it seemed like it was a glamorous profession all of a sudden. So someone like JFK, who worked on the Harvard Crimson, he would never have dreamed of becoming a journalist because it was so low status, and he was on this like meritocratic rise. But after that movie, suddenly people who wanted to become famous, who wanted to be a big deal, who wanted to have high status, they started considering becoming journalists. These pressures increased by the 80s and 90s. Journalists were much more highly educated, much more affluent, much more liberal than Americans overall. So in 1937, less than half of journalists in the elite Washington cohort had a college degree. Today, it's over 92%. Right? Now remember that only 36% of Americans have a college degree. So that disparity is a really big deal, right? But it really took off with digital media.
I'm gonna go back to the digital media thing. Yeah, I agree. You can see it now in reporters today when reporters want to be famous. They want to be celebrities themselves. That's why they're on Twitter, twittering away to get those likes and affirmation and push me up and make me famous, get my little check mark and stuff like that. They're not, a lot of them don't feel like, it doesn't feel like they're in it to just give the truth, and that's it. It feels like they're in it because this is a way to promote their lifestyle and push them up the social and fame ladder themselves. There's reporters who make stories about themselves. There's journalists who make stories about, oh, I was bullied, let me make a story about it. Like, you're not supposed to be the story. You're supposed to be reporting the facts to the people that's supposed to be benefiting them. And before, when I was saying like they're not the voice of the people anymore, I'm not saying that the reporters are supposed to just say what the people want to hear. But if there's special interest, if you're connected to the 1%, if you're connected to lobbyists, if you're connected to that affluent lifestyle, and we all know like that our mainstream news platforms are owned by a very handful of people, just a few people, that they have their own special interests, you're going to report the news in a slanted and a biased way that protects and supports your special interest, which you're connected to. So if reporters back then was connected to the working everyday people, they're going to give the facts and they're going to give the information that helps them because that is what they're connected to. I don't think anyone thinks there's anything wrong with having a higher educational degree or going to college or getting university, besides the ones who get indoctrinated into craziness. Other than that, like, there's nothing really wrong with that. But the point she was trying to say is, like, if 90-something% have this college degrees, and not only just college degrees, like college degrees at elite pompous ass universities where they usually graduate thinking you're better than everyone and stuff like that, you are going to be disconnected from the average American because, like she said, only a small percentage of average Americans have, or Americans in general have, college degrees, especially not ones at pompous ass elite universities, right? Like, short little side story, when I was sitting with a group of people, and most of them are progressives and most of them are from Europe or Australia. They were asking me questions about like Trump, and they were like, how did he win? Like, we don't understand. Like, is America's just so racist, or they're that racist that they would, like, vote for such a racist man himself? And I tried to explain to him, like, no, Trump spoke to the working class people. The working class people is the backbone of a country. If you do not speak to the working class people, it's really hard to get support from citizens of your country. And I said something, they kind of made fun of how he talks, and I was like, he talks like the average person, like someone like Barack Obama, which he was a great speaker, but he speaks like an educated person, which might be a disconnect for the average American because most average Americans didn't go to university. And as soon as I said that, one of the girls snickered, and she snickered, and it's like, of course they didn't. Like, this really like pompous ass conceding way, and I like pointed to her and I was like, that's exactly what it is. Exactly what you did. That's what a lot of average Americans feel like when they are spoken to by reporters, by blue Twitter check marks, by these university elites. They feel like they're being condescended to, and they feel like they're being talked down to, and no human being wants to feel like that, and they're not going to stand for that, and they're not going to want to support you. So, like, just because you have a higher learning degree or an education doesn't mean you're better than someone. And in my opinion, depending on the degree, depending on what you're going into, you just got really good at repeating back what was told to you. It's no accident when Tim Cass, you don't know him, he was an independent journalist or a journalist, and now he's a YouTuber or podcaster like everyone else. And he talked about how, like, he didn't like hiring university students, and he would rather hire people who've been working their entire adulthood life, because university students didn't seem to know how to be leaders or critical thinkers or just go-doers. They weren't efficient because they were so used to people telling them what to do, people telling them how to be. Should have putting the coins in them and then pushing them. They didn't know how to just do things on their own because they got really, really good at just repeating and doing what they were told. Depending on the degree, though. I'm not saying every degree is like that. If you're like in robotics or engineering, you're a doctor, I get it. But a lot of these, especially these liberal art degrees, they got really good at just repeating what they were told. That's why when kids graduate, they all seem to have the same fucking ideology because they're just repeating and parodying what they were told. That doesn't necessarily mark intelligence. Anyway, let's get back into it.
What happened with digital media was essentially we can learn so much about our readers and our viewers from the back end that we could, journalists could start to really target their journalism.
I thought I read something in your book about paywall.
2011 was when the New York Times erected its paywall. What happened then was when the woke revolution really took hold in digital media, which is to say that words like oppression, marginalization, people of color and marginalization in the same sentence, right? Creating that neural pathway, right? That kind of woke worldview where, white people have all the power and are uniquely evil, and people of color have no power, no agency, and need our help and, need us to take care of them. That worldview started to appear in the New York Times, the Washington Post, NPR, the Atlantic, CNN, MSNBC, all of the liberal media outlets started to use these words with just exponential frequency. White supremacy, right, went from being mentioned, 75 times to being mentioned, 750 times in 1 year, right?
So she's talking about when news became digital, they can look at the back end, almost like the algorithm, and see what's getting the most views and what's spiking visitations and stuff like that, and realizing that rage bait was getting a lot of attention. Rage bait was paying the bill. So the most outlandish, rageous, hateful, white people are all neo-Nazis or whatever, they hate black people, whatever. People are going to click on that, barely read the article because most people just scan through it or barely read it. They just look at the headlines or whatever, and they realize that those were going to get the clicks, those were going to get the views, so why not just keep doing that? It's the same thing as almost like your average YouTuber. Like, hey, you guys like this? I'm going to keep doing this. And I'm not necessarily like that because I like diversity on my channel, but like most people are going to just keep doing what you like. And so that's when it was just a newspaper and people were getting more of their news from the newspapers or maybe just even television. Maybe it was harder for them to be able to see what's getting the views, what's pulling people in. And then when it came digitalized, almost like an algorithm, they can kind of see and be like, oh, this is what's doing it. More rage, more rage, more rage. And so it seems like we're all fucking angry, we're all at each other's throat. But you know what? Most people, average people, go outside and it's fine. The news will make you think that the world is on fire, and in some ways it is metaphorically, but for the most part, people just get along. But the news will make it seem like a black person and a white person just cannot be in the same room without hatred, and that's not true for the average person. Anyway, let's continue.
There's just this outpouring of articles that were obsessing over race all the time, starting when the media went digital, and that really had an impact on how white liberals started to think and talk about race. I will say I think you can tell a lot about who the New York Times and the Washington Post and the liberal outlets are catering to based on what you read. They're exactly like you said. So who are they stroking? And it's these liberal elites who have these, vanity morals that they often impose on the working class, things like defund the police, that actually hurts working class black Americans more than anybody else. 81% of black Americans oppose it, but
it's completely right. These articles are not meant for the eyes of the working class or even people who are living in the lower class system. They're not for them. They're for these liberal elites who have a perfectly fine life, who've never been impressed a day in their life, who feel like they want a virtue signal and feel like a better person. So they use little black people and women and LGBTQ, whatever oppressed label, to sort of, again, make their little side project, make myself feel like I'm a better person. Like these vanity labels, these vanity things of like, I can just put a hashtag in a black box and my pronouns in my bio and I look like a good person without actually doing anything good. Let's continue.
it's the only view that you could read in the New York Times. I'm sorry.
Well,
Much of 2020.
That particular accusation is not true. I mean, you certainly read about the defund the police movement, but you read plenty of voices and plenty of articles about the resistance to that. You read about Biden and many Democrats saying, no, that is not a winning path for our party.
Much later. I mean, when it became safe, with COVID, right? When it becomes safe
I think
say
that's the ultimate one.
I think
where
that's
you-
yeah,
generalized.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, who
Right.
bore the brunt of the lockdown burdens? It was the working class.
Yes.
Rich people sat at home
And masks.
they turned being
Right.
at home into a virtue when actually it was a sign of economic privilege.
Being at home is another vanity virtue because I'm comfortable, I'm fine. I don't actually have to do anything, but if I yell it and I feel like a good person, then why not, right? I don't care if it's hurting the ones that I snub my nose up at anyway. She's completely correct. And this guy, I don't know if he's saying this out of just he's lying or he's being disingenuous or he just really don't know, because a lot of people who really just suck up whatever CNN and the mainstream is telling them, they really don't understand. They don't see the full picture. Just like anybody who only listens to Tucker Carlson or Fox News, they don't see the full picture. And that's why it's so hard to sometimes have these come together conversations, because we're literally living in these two different realities. Because I know someone, we had a conversation about like conspiracy theories, and we brought up the fact that me and another friend brought up the fact that the lab leak used to be a conspiracy theory, and now the news, the mainstream news, after like literally demonizing people from saying that, people getting kicked off of social media platforms, people being called racist for saying that, is now saying that's probably what happened. And he said, the guy that literally sucks down all the mainstream he can possibly can, was saying like, no, like I saw news articles saying that was a fact. That was never a conspiracy, because he's not looking at the full picture. So for him and this other guy, he might only paid attention when he saw in the mainstream news saying like, we don't support defund the police, and completely ignore them when they were utterly in some travel vlog channel. You know what I mean? So it's like, maybe he's being disingenuous, but he might not know, because a lot of people just live in separate realities depending on what mainstream you are really just listening to and worshiping as your Lord and God and Savior. If you're not diversifying the people in the platforms you're listening to, you're not going to get a full picture. Anyway, guys, that is it. Tell me what you think of what I said, what they said. Let me know in the comment section below. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to get your notifications when I do upload. All of that really does help with the algorithm, guys. And if you'd like to support this channel even further, you can donate. My PayPal link is in the description box below and also in the comment section. Of course, it helps, but you don't have to. You can just like, comment, subscribe. And another great way to support this channel is either join my brand new membership program, different levels, different tiers, different perks, or you can visit my brand new merch shop. Links down below. I also have a second travel vlog channel. I travel as a lifestyle or live abroad. If you'd like to know where I am in the world, you can go in the description box below and also in the comment section. Hit the link. Go subscribe to the travel vlog channel and or follow me on my travel Instagram. My stories is usually what's most up to date. And you guys have an amazing day. Bye.